what they're doing. I mean, everybody's trying to think there's a grand conspiracy. There may be, but just on the surface of it, they're so bad that Donald Trump in his press conference yesterday says, first of all, and throughout the day, well, I understand why they're doing what they're doing. I have great respect for it, but it's the greatest witch hunt in history, and it's terrible, and it'll divide the United States. And they're also doing the same thing about Mike Pence, denying that that the White House had any knowledge of the investigation, and then at the same time leaking, well, we're very troubled that Mike Pence is being kept out in the dark about all of the Flynn investigation. So they have 2 or 3 storylines going, and they're just not consistent with each other.
Yeah, I mean, and that's been the case for the last few weeks as well. I think you put your finger on something really important, which is Vice President Mike Pence, people around him now talking to news outlets and saying he was left in the dark on these decisions. I think he's gotten to the point now where he's gone out 3 times and been asked to say something that later was proven to be untrue, that he's got to look out for himself. And he's been such a good soldier since the time he was named the nominee to be vice president. This is the first time we've seen a rift between Pence and the Trump White House.
Well, and Bob Woodward, Bob Woodward's here. Well, I'll introduce everybody. I'm doing all of this wrong. But this is the first time I've ever done it before, so be patient with me. We've got Washington anchor for BBC World News America, Katty Kay, Pulitzer Prize winning columnist and associate editor for the Washington Post, Eugene Robinson, Pulitzer Prize winning associate editor for the Washington Post, Bob Woodward, and New York Times reporter and Carlos Slim blogger, Michael Schmidt, who again has the front page piece this morning. You were whacked by the alt-right last night. It's Carlos Slim's blogger.
I've become Carlos Slim's blogger.
Yeah,
I guess
you're pretty good at it.
The right doesn't like me anymore, but that's okay.
The right loved you, though, when you were tearing into Hillary Clinton's story every day about her
how quickly they forget, but that's okay. It's part of the job.
It's sad. So, Bob Woodward, we are faced with 2 options with Mike Pence, a man I've known for a long time, a man I've served with, a man that I like very much personally, like his family very much personally. But as it pertains to Michael Flynn, as it pertains to Rod Rosenstein and the firing of Donald Trump, as it pertains to more and more things,
the firing of Donald Trump.
Yeah. Mike Pence, Vice President of the United States, is either a sucker and a dupe for Donald Trump, is being set up that way to go out and lie again, or he's a liar. There is no middle ground. And if it is the first, I think it's about time for Mike Pence to go to Donald Trump and say, as I think most of us would, if you set me up to be your liar again, I'm walking.
Well, but it's not just Pence. It's the whole team in the White House. You've got, as you look at this from some distance, it's very clear Trump and this team were not ready for the presidency, not even close to it.
Right.
And all of these troubles lead back to no one who can come to Trump and say, you know, you need to put the cork in the bottle. We need to plan. We need to think strategically, even if it's just in 24-hour cycles, and it does not happen. And so I've never quite seen any kind of, and we describe it as unraveling. It's really not unraveling. It's started that way,
right.
And there was no way to sit down and say, now remember all the presidents before would have a kind of, okay, what's the message of the day? How do we organize the day? They don't even organize 5 minutes.
Well, they can't, because whatever they say, whatever they do, Donald Trump will be sure to contradict it in 10, 15 minutes with a tweet. But in the case of Mike Pence, this has happened time and again. It sort of happened yesterday to Rod Rosenstein. He got tangled up in some testimony, and of course the big news coming out of that, which we'll get to now, is that several senators came out and said this investigation has become a criminal investigation.
Yeah, and they say that Rod Rosenstein inside that meeting came out and said in the meeting that, yes, I knew ahead of time that Comey was going to be fired, and I was asked to draft a memo saying that he should be. Let's talk about Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. He will brief all House members this morning about the controversial firing of FBI Director James Comey. Yesterday, he spoke to the Senate, as we mentioned, and his explanation of the timeline of events did not sit well with many Democrats.
He knew that Comey was going to be removed prior to him writing his memos.
Do you believe that the Deputy Attorney General knew before he wrote that memo that James Comey was going to be fired?
Yes.
What was it that he said that led you to believe?
He knew the day before.
Did he indicate he was pressured into writing that memo?
No.
The Washington Post, sourcing 3 senators, reports that behind closed doors, things grew heated. Democrats pressing Rosenstein on the scope of Mueller's investigation, why Sessions was involved in the firing, and why the Attorney General is playing a role in choosing Comey's replacement. Then there's the approach of the investigation going forward. Some lawmakers interpreted Rosenstein's brief as saying the investigation had crossed from a counterintelligence probe to a criminal one.
Has the nature of the investigation changed from counter-terror to a criminal investigation? And if so, what are the repercussions?
Well, I assume that this has been a counterintelligence investigation primarily, but as Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein said, this is going to be up to Director Mueller under the appointment he got as special counsel.
As someone who is on the Intel Committee and perhaps open to much more information than many of the other members, I don't want to characterize, I don't want to comment on that.
I think the shock to the body is it's now considered a criminal investigation, and Congress's ability to conduct investigations of all things Russia has been severely limited, probably in an appropriate fashion.
So, Joe, we go back and forth. Yesterday, Rosenstein was celebrated for naming a special counsel and perhaps redeeming himself. But then yesterday, confirming what Donald Trump said in the interview to Lester Holt last week, that the decision to fire Comey had already been made, and Rosenstein was willing to go out and draft a memo that showed reason and gave cause for that.
Yeah, that was incredible. And you look, Gene Robinson, at Lindsey Graham, who, by the way, if they give a Lifetime Achievement Awards, if Capitol Hill reporters give Lifetime Achievement Awards to members of Congress, Lindsey should get it. Because I will tell you, he will tell you what other people won't. I remember when we were running our weekly coups against Newt Gingrich, we would have secret meetings. And as we walked out of the secret meetings, there would be all of these press here, and we'd all turn around to Lindsey and go, Lindsey, you got to stop telling them where our secret coup meetings are. They're not secret. And you'd have to walk through these line of reporters saying, are you really going to take down Newt Gingrich? You've got no comment. And we finally just stopped going because Lindsey, I mean, I forget who it was. God bless him. The press loves him. But seriously, somebody said, that's not the guy you want guarding the Pentagon.
Well,
he's a great guy. But he reveals secrets. But let's talk about, though, what Lindsey said. This has become a criminal investigation.
Yeah, right. If you triangulate what all the senators said when they came out, it doesn't sound as if Rosenstein pronounced that sentence, right? That clearly, but he did give the impression that the investigation was going in a different way and that it could become a criminal investigation.